Rows and rows of neatly lined green shrubs on small hillocks. That is the vision that comes to mind when we think of tea gardens. Postcards from some places like Jorhat in Assam or Kerala's Munnar. But what if we told you that there are people who produce tea from wild trees growing in jungles in Manipur? Yes, a company in Manipur is branding wild teas forged from teas growing in jungles. This method of cultivation, where we take from plants and trees without melting in their cultivation, is called permaculture. This method stresses on a form of farming without disturbing the ecology and biodiversity of a place. In fact, in permaculture, we rely on the flora and fauna for it. Welcome to Earshot English. You're listening to our show, How to Be an Organic Farmer, where gardeners, farmers, and agricultural experts tell us the best ways of becoming an organic farmer. In this episode, we will learn about the most natural method of farming, permaculture.
今の農法というのは人間の知恵であった農法です。人間の知恵をして科学をして文明を否定したら残るのは自然の方です。
Modern agriculture is built with human intelligence. When you reject human knowledge, reject science, reject civilization, the only thing that remains is natural farming. You just heard Masanobu Fukuoka, Japanese agriculturalist and philosopher, speaking to Cecilia Macaulay, a permaculturalist and farming consultant. Fukuoka taught a method of do-nothing farming. He encouraged farmers to not till the land and not apply any herbicide and pesticide. His method has today evolved into what we know as permaculture. The idea of permaculture evolved in the 1970s when Australian biologist Bill Mollison and his student David Holmgren first coined the term by using the phrases permanent agriculture and permanent culture. The natural farming method of permaculture revolves around three key principles: people care, earth care, and fair share. But how is permaculture different from other methods of natural farming like organic farming or hydroponics? Let's listen to Kavya Chandra of the Bangalore-based A Green Venture tell us.
So natural farming is more of organic farming, if you want to also call it that, is more of clearing away land and then growing on land. So you clear whatever greenery there is, which means trees, shrubs, any kind of undergrowth is cleared and then you plant your crops. So that is natural farming. Permaculture is where you adopt what is already there and you start farming around what already exists. So you work with nature. That is the difference between permaculture and natural farming.
One of the main concerns around permaculture is about its commercial viability. How does it become sustainable for the farmer? That was the exact thought in the minds of Mohit Naru and Boylal Gangte when they co-founded Beyond Dyer, a company that sells wild teas made from tea leaves forged from the forests of the Northeast. Mohit said that they left corporate jobs to found this company. Their idea was to bring in front of the world something from the Northeast that people do not know much about. Boylal Gangte says that he felt the need to find a product which could be ecologically sourced without disturbing the environment.
The thought which was there that if there are already existing plants or crops or tree, whatever you call it, this wild tea, if there are already existing plants or crops which you can harness it without disturbing the environment, then there's nothing like it, right? Because in wild tea we don't go and cut the tree. We just have to pluck the tea leaves, and the tea leaves will flourish back, would bud again after 15 days.
The tea is handcrafted, and this means that the tea retains its nutrition as well as flavor. They source their teas from over 20 villages in Manipur's Chaurachandpur district. The idea might seem novel to us, but in Manipur, this style of picking leaves from grown trees in the hilly region has been done for ages. Gangte says perhaps it precedes even the entry of the British, who were even known to have planted the first tea gardens in India. Manipur's neighboring state Assam is the largest producer of tea in the world. In Assam's tea gardens, trees are pruned routinely and they are not allowed to grow beyond a certain height to help in the plucking. Gangte says that households in the region have been producing these teas for ages, but in small quantities.
When we came into being and started our venture, but our venture required, hundreds and hundreds of kilo of fresh leaves. Now, the biggest challenge of wild tea making is in picking the tea leaves, because these are tea which grows in the forest, and it's just not a forest; it's a mountain forest. Yes. So the reaching to the forest in itself is a tough task. In a sense, you need to hike for about 5 kilometers deep inside, and then the tea plants are not just plants, but they are trees. While it's not a very big tree, but it's a medium-sized tree, which can grow up to 20 feet tall, and people have to climb. Sometimes people have to climb on top of the trees and pluck it. So it's a fairly challenging task.
The forage teas are then paired with local produce like ginger from Assam's Karbi Anglong, or the famous Bhut Jalokia of the region, or Meghalaya's Lekadong turmeric. The venture has now generated livelihood for the local people.
I think the one thing which is very different is that when you do this entire handcrafting, one is because of the fact that we are able to retain the nutritional value of the teas. The second thing which it ends up is all this process ends up generating a lot of livelihood.
Yeah.
Okay. And income for the local people.
And it is not just livelihood. Income from the tea trees have also encouraged farmers to go back to a more natural form of cultivation, one where they do not touch nature.
The main occupation of people here is the Zoom cultivation, the slash and burn cultivation. Right? In a slash and burn cultivation, as he said, what they do is that every year they just go and clear up a mountain slope of about, let's say, one household would clear up about 1 to 2 acres. Yes. What we mean by clearing it out is, in the sense, they will first chop down anything which is there, and then they'll burn it down. And in fact, even if there are wild teas which are there, they'll chop it down and then they'll burn it, and they will use the ashes for the fertilizer in itself, and then they will grow crops. But in a mountain soil, you can't use fertilizers, or you can't use any form of chemicals, because rain comes and washes down, right? Yes. So you have to depend only on the fertility of the inherent properties of the soil itself. Yes. So after 2 to 3 years of cultivation, it goes away. So this has been happening for ages. So in the process, what it does is that it's destroying the ecosystem plus the forest green. In fact, people in the villages, the older ones, they could tell the sort of temperature rise over the past 20 years.
Gangte and Naru say that the plan is that they bring the change to 50 such villages in the future. We must remember that permaculture is not easy to achieve. It involves taking along what the land has to give, and that includes the insects, the animals, the birds, and the bees. Kavya says that it takes years of seasoned organic farmers to adapt to these methods.
It's actually a process that you can reach after a few years, which is what I have seen many farmers that we work with have been doing. It's a slightly more complicated way of farming, because you are working with many of the adversities of the environment. You're working with biodiversity, you're working with animals. And many farmers actually don't prefer that because they interfere with the growing of their crops.
With the farmers that Kavya works with, the interference of animals in the farming process is encouraged. She speaks of an enlightening example where birds like mynas and parrots help in the farming process.
But with the farmers that we work with, we have seen that they taken the natural world because there are many benefits that they get.
Yes.
For example, just to give you an example, on some of the farms, on one of the farms that we work with, there are lots of chiku and guava trees. And sometimes these trees become really tall. So it's difficult to assess whether the fruits are ready to be picked or not. But the arrival of parrots and miners and their feeding on these fruits signals us that the fruits are ready for ripening. So if we can see nature not as an obstacle, but as an assistance, as something which helps us farm, that's the difference between permaculture and natural farming.
And so that was about permaculture. This is me, your host Sanyam Sharma, signing out with our reporter Amrita Madhukalya. Till the next episode of our series, How to Be an Organic Farmer. Keep listening to Earshot.in or download the Earshot app now.